welcome to Fair Game. I'm Kristine Leahy, and I am so excited because I'm a huge gymnastics fan. During the Summer Olympics, I am glued to the TV for this sport. And joining me today is one of the greatest gymnasts of all time. She won gold at the 2008 Olympics, and I cannot get enough of her floor routines. The one and only Nastia Liukin is here. Nastia, thank you so much for coming on. And we actually met back during American Ninja Warrior when you were a celebrity and you did the course. You were partnered with one of my favorite people of all time, Barclay, and I know you guys still keep in touch.
Yeah.
Won $30,000 for charity. You were really serious about Ninja Warrior, and it kind of blew me away. I wasn't sure what to expect, but you took it seriously.
Okay, so backtracking. So
Yeah.
I did Dancing with the Stars with Derek Huff, and so I know he did Ninja the year before.
And he did well.
And he did well. And so I texted him, I said, okay, like how hard was it? And he's like, just so you know, like it's all upper body strength. I'm like, awesome, I can't even do a pull-up anymore. And so I was really nervous because I also know that gymnasts have done very well on the
Casey Kensaro.
Yes, on the show. Some of my Olympic teammates that, you know, John Horton's been on the show. So it's like, there's a lot of pressure. And so I took it very seriously. I definitely feel like so much of it was because of like my gymnastics training. It was like my grip. Like I for sure was not the strongest person out there, but it was because I was so used to like hanging on the uneven bars. I feel like that helped.
Shawn Johnson was also one of my favorites to watch.
Yes.
I watched you guys all the time.
Oh,
it's my favorite
thanks.
thing. You guys were friends, and then you stopped being friends
Yeah.
for a really long time because the media kind of created this idea that you
Yeah.
should be rivals.
Yeah.
And you guys bought into it, which is, it's sad.
It is,
But
yeah.
do you feel like kind of that childhood innocence is stripped from you a bit, and your friendships are stripped from you when you're going through all that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think especially when you're 16 and 18 years old, but you're also, you know, in this little bubble for so many years that I feel like, you know, we were mature in certain ways, but then in other ways we were very inexperienced. And so things like that of, you know, having people, you start hearing things, whether it's from the media or, you know, everything was a competition, you know, not just on the competition floor. And that's what, like, we just started hating that because it was like, Nastia got this, John got this, Nastia's doing this, John, and it like became a competition. And it was like the hardest thing for us because we started kind of buying into that and believing all that. Time and time and time went on, and like we didn't talk to each other, you know, and then it was like 8 years later, all of a sudden, and we realized we didn't even have each other's phone numbers anymore because we had both changed numbers over the years. And I was in New York City, I was going to school. I was sitting down doing an interview with the New York Times, and I remember he literally asked like a similar question, like about Shawn, and I was like, her wedding was coming up, and at the time I wasn't invited. And he got up to use the restroom, and I just like opened my phone, and I had the longest email from her, and I was like—
The same day?
Like in the same moment.
Weird.
Yeah, and I emailed her right back, and she was like, well, it'd really mean a lot if like you were at my wedding, and I was like, I'd love to be there. And so I was there, and so we're very lucky to have each other.
Yeah, and you guys are still friends now?
Yes.
You know, when you watch gymnastics, or at least when I do, I watch the gymnasts, and then compared to every other Olympian there, they're so serious.
Yeah.
The game face is insane,
Yeah.
and they're so young. I feel for the gymnasts when I watch too, because they are so serious, and you can tell they have so much riding on them.
Yeah.
And then because they're so young, my heart broke when I heard about the Larry Nassar stuff and the stories started coming out. And I'll admit, and I think a lot of people said this, they were shocked by your initial reaction that he was always really professional with you. When you look back at that now, do you understand why people might have been upset at the way that you came out?
Yes, and I think for the longest time, I really was shocked, and I was dealing with it, you know, first of all, before I even get into that, like, as you said, like, my heart just, like, still hurts just thinking about it for so many of my teammates and so many of the victims that, you know, I don't even know, but I can't believe that they had to go through that. And I'm still, like, trying to figure out, like, how that happened. You know, so many times, like, whether it was, like, parents were in the room, like, at the same... So I think, like, that's why everyone was, like, so shocked, because I guess he did it in a way that, like, nobody knew, you know? And so for me, he was my doctor for 12 years, and so it was somebody that I trusted. And, you know, some of like the hardest things is like, you know, no way, like people will say like, no way, like your dad didn't know he was your coach, he was there. And I'm like, do you really think that my dad would trust, you know, some man with his daughter if he knew he was doing that? Like, that's like disgusting. Like, and so I think for me, I was dealing with it and processing it in a way with, yes, I wasn't a victim of his sexual abuse, but also I trusted this man. And so it was very hard to kind of process all of that.
Well, and for you, this was really tough for you because this is a guy who essentially held you together.
Oh my God, yes.
He's responsible for a lot of the success in your career. And then you find out that this happens. And I know you were really stressed out at the time. And then it comes out your dad was named in one of the impact statements.
Yeah.
How do you deal with that? How do you process that as a woman and also as his daughter?
Yeah, so like my dad was my coach, so he was always there. My heart goes out to all of the victims, and I can't imagine what they've had to go through and continue to have to go through on a daily basis. But at the same time, you know, the athlete that kind of spoke out and named him in her statement, he's never coached her ever before.
Why would she do that?
I'm not sure. And I haven't had the chance to talk with her. Yeah, so I think like that's hard. I think just as a daughter, you know, it's like,
dad to deal with that.
I'm also kind of like, you can take stabs at me all you want, but the second you mess with my family, and I think like that was like the hardest part for all of us. I think I was just most surprised because it wasn't even from an athlete that he ever coached, so it was a little strange.
Well, it's so hard when you said you can take stabs at me, but not at my family. You live your life so publicly now, and you went to NYU, which is so cool that you went there. I love that school.
Yeah.
But everyone knows you. You're Nastia. Why was it so important for you to go to NYU, and then how was it dealing with the fact that everyone knew who you were?
I would have to say, like, living in New York, like, no one really cares, like, who you are, what you've done. And I feel like when I transitioned and I retired from gymnastics, I truly just needed to figure out who I was, like who Nastia was, not, okay, you know, Nastia Liukin, the Olympic gymnast, Nastia Liukin, the girl in Dancing with the Stars, or American Ninja Warrior, or whatever. It was just like, who am I as a person, you know? And so that took like, it took a lot of time, but I feel like going to school and living in New York, like I was able to do that.
Yeah. Part of you is being a person. You found a guy, you guys were engaged, and then you had to make the decision, you postponed the wedding.
Yeah.
Usually that's a decision that people make in private. It's not something that everyone gets to know and be a part of. How was it dealing with that?
You know, it's definitely challenging, especially when you go through something so personal. It hasn't been easy, but I feel like it's also been like a huge learning lesson, and being able to have those people in your life that are going to support you, you know, through the great times, but also the times where like you need your friends to be there for you.
Yeah.
So.
Well, a great thing that came out of that relationship was Grindr. You guys co-founded that together, the app. Can you tell me what that is?
Yeah, it's been so exciting because both of us really relied heavily growing up. He played hockey, me in gymnastics, and relying on the fact of having great mentors in your life. And so both in sports, but also in life, in relationships, in business. And so this next generation, like I truly just felt so passionate that they needed, you know, a place to go to and a community behind them, and to be able to support them, and to not just share, you know, your stories about success or like your highs, because like that's easy to do, and that's kind of what we all do on social media, right?
Highlights.
We kind of give the highlights of our life, and that's fine, but I also think it's so important for this next generation to know, like, that's not real life. Like, you and I didn't wake up looking like this. You know what I mean? Like, we have people that help us, and
yes, there's a whole hair crew.
There's a whole
back
team
there,
here.
makeup.
Yes, exactly. And you know, and so I think just being able to kind of, for these young girls and these young women to kind of understand that, look, like, we go through breakups, we go through times where we're not confident, or, you know, we're not, you know, happy with our bodies, or, you know, we don't always eat healthy, and we, you know, it's like everyone thinks that we live like this very put together, perfect life, and that's not the case.
Well, we can go eat a pizza when we're done with this. I would love to, and I'm going to download the app.